So, I finally have to get this off my chest because these people will not stop calling me. My phone looks like I'm being stalked by a telemarketer. 147 calls Monday, 156 Tuesday. I've been counting because at this point it's entertainment. Some background because this Thanksgiving wasn't random. This has been building for 26 years. My mom Joanna had me at 19 with my bio father who disappeared before I was born. She married Pierce when I was 4. They had my sister Valerie when I was 6. From the moment Valerie existed, I became the reminder of my mom's mistake. Pierce never let me forget I wasn't his real son. And my mom chose her new family over me. Growing up was like being a permanent unwelcome guest. Valerie got the bedroom with windows. I got the basement storage room with the water heater making noise all night. Valerie got new school clothes. I got church donation bins. When I was 12, Pierce told me he was spending his money on his daughter and I should be grateful he let me eat at his table. My mom stood in the doorway during that conversation and said nothing. Nothing. That was when I understood where I stood. Not when they left me out of Christmas photos at 8. Not when they forgot my birthday at 10, but threw Valerie a princess party. It was watching my mother choose silence. I didn't become some sad, broken kid. I got angry and I stayed angry. Every slight, every humiliation, every time Pierce called me a burden, I filed it away. I knew someday the scales would tip. This Thanksgiving. I'm 26, systems analyst, own apartment, own car. Why was I there? My grandmother, Mom's mother, specifically asked. She's 81 and said it might be her last big gathering for grandma. I showed up. 30 relatives at Pierce and Joanna's house. I walked in wearing a decent jacket, nothing fancy, but it was 38 degrees in Ohio. Pierce met me at the door and told me to hand him my jacket. 5 minutes later, he came back from the garage and told me he threw it in the trash because real men don't need coats. They generate their own heat. And maybe if I spent less money looking pretty and more time in the gym, I wouldn't bundle up like a child. Everyone in the living room heard and laughed. My aunt, Uncle Nathaniel, cousins, all laughing. I didn't react, just filed it away. Dinner came. Massive table, 29 chairs, 30 people. My mom told me there wasn't room, but she'd made me a plate for the back porch. I asked if she was serious. She said the porch had a space heater, and besides, she told relatives I was getting over a stomach bug, so they wouldn't be comfortable near me. She told 30 family members I was contagious to exile me from Thanksgiving dinner. I took the plate, walked to the porch. The space heater was a tiny radiator that barely warms a bathroom. I sat on a plastic lawn chair and heard the back door close. Then the lock click. She locked me out. I looked through the glass. My sister Valerie was recording me on her phone, laughing so hard she was bent over. She said through the glass that I was actually doing it, sitting out there like a dog. And she couldn't believe I was this pathetic. Here's what everyone needs to understand. I wasn't shocked or devastated. This was exactly what I expected. The only difference was they'd gotten bold enough to do it in front of witnesses. I ate my dinner. 40 minutes in the cold with no jacket. Not one cousin checked on me. Mom's contagious story worked perfectly. I saw some glance toward the porch and quickly look away. Grandma wasn't at the table. She was in her wheelchair in the living room. She had no idea I was on the porch. They told her I was eating in the basement for work calls. After dinner, Mom unlocked the door and said I could come in for dessert, like she was doing me a favor. I told her I was leaving. I said goodbye to Grandma, who grabbed my hand and asked why my fingers were so cold. I said my car heating was acting up. I hugged her. I left. Valerie posted the porch video to Instagram that night with the caption, "Thanksgiving dog." 47 people saw it. A high school friend sent me a screenshot asking what the hell was going on. I didn't respond to anyone. I went home and waited. Here's what none of them knew. I'd been waiting for something like this for years because I knew something they didn't about Grandma Yvonne. 3 years ago, Grandma pulled me aside and told me she was changing her will. She'd watched how Pierce and Joanna treated me my whole life and was ashamed she hadn't done more. She said she was leaving me the house. The same house Pierce and Joanna have lived in rent-free for 15 years because Grandma moved to assisted living and let them stay to keep it maintained. They don't own it. It's Grandma's house and she's leaving it to me. Grandma also told me Pierce has been telling everyone she promised him the house. He's made financial decisions based on that. They refinanced car loans, assuming they'd inherit it. Never saved anything because why save when you're getting a $300,000 house? I've spent 3 years knowing this while they treated me like garbage. 3 years waiting for the right moment. 1 week after Thanksgiving, Grandma had a fall. She's okay, but not okay. Doctor said, get her affairs in order. She called everyone to discuss her estate. That's when my phone exploded. Text from my aunt asking to call urgently. Voicemail from Uncle Nathaniel saying we needed to talk. Then Mom calling, then Pierce, then Valerie. 147 calls Monday, 156 Tuesday. I haven't answered one. Just watching the numbers climb while thinking about that cold porch and locked door and my sister's laughing face through the window. They know now. Grandma told them at the family meeting I skipped. She told them exactly who gets the house and that they have 6 months to find somewhere else to live. Now they're calling 150 times a day because they need something from me. I don't know what yet because I haven't picked up, but I will eventually. I've waited 26 years. I can wait a few more days to figure out exactly how I want this to go. Nobody in my family has figured it out yet. I'm not hurt or looking for closure or apologies. I'm angry. Been angry since I was 12 watching my mother choose silence over her son. And angry people with patience and leverage are dangerous. More updates coming. Pierce was in my apartment parking lot this morning just sitting in his truck waiting. I saw him through my window and didn't go outside. Let him wait. Let him sit in the cold for once. Update 1. Okay, so a lot happened since my last post. Some of you asked me to update when I finally talked to them. So, here we go. Pierce sat in my parking lot for 3 days, morning until night, just sitting there in his truck. My neighbor Evan came by Thursday asking if I needed him to call someone because there was a man watching my building making people uncomfortable. I told him it was a family situation. Friday, I decided I was done letting Pierce control the timeline. That's what he was doing, waiting for me to come out so he could choose when we talked. So, I texted my mom instead, not Pierce. I knew that would drive him crazy. I told her if she wanted to talk, she could come to the diner on 5th Street Saturday noon. Just her, no Pierce, no Valerie. Anyone else shows up, I leave. She responded in 30 seconds asking why I was being difficult and why couldn't we talk at the house like normal family. I told her I wasn't setting foot there again until the deed had my name on it. Saturday noon, I'm at the diner. Mom shows up with this look like she's the one wronged. First thing out of her mouth wasn't an apology. She started talking about how Grandma isn't thinking clearly, how medication affects her judgment, and how it wasn't fair that I was taking advantage of an old woman's confusion to steal from the family. Steal from the family. I let her go for 5 minutes. She talked about how Pierce maintained that house for 15 years. How they'd put money into repairs. How they'd given up opportunities because Grandma needed someone nearby. She said I'd been gone for years barely visiting. And now I swoop in to collect a reward I didn't earn. When she stopped, I asked if she remembered what Pierce said when I was 12, about whose money paid for what, and who should be grateful for eating at whose table. She said that was long ago, and people say things they don't mean when stressed about finances. I told her Pierce meant every word. I told her I remembered every time she stood there letting him treat me like I was worthless. The basement room, the used clothes, being left out of family photos, Thanksgiving when I was 9, eating alone in the kitchen because Pierce said the dining room was for real family. She started shaking her head the whole time, physically rejecting my memories. She said I was exaggerating. It wasn't that bad. All kids feel left out sometimes, and I was turning normal disappointments into persecution. I showed her Valerie's Instagram video of me on the porch. Asked if that was normal. If locking your adult son outside in November and telling family he was contagious happened in normal families. She said Thanksgiving was a misunderstanding. There really weren't enough chairs and the porch was supposed to be temporary, but things got busy and she forgot I was out there. Forgot. For 40 minutes while I was locked outside in 38 degrees without my jacket, I told her I didn't believe a word and she knew it. The only reason she was here was because she found out about the house and suddenly I was worth talking to. She changed tactics, started talking about Grandma's wishes and family harmony and how Grandma would be devastated watching her family tear apart. She said maybe there was a way everyone could benefit. Maybe I could let them stay and pay rent or sell it and split the money fairly. I asked what fairly meant. She said obviously Pierce and Joanna should get larger share because of years maintaining the property and being there for Grandma. Her version of fairly was me giving up most of the inheritance Grandma specifically left me because she watched them abuse me for 2 decades. I told her no. When Grandma passed and the house became mine, they had 6 months to leave. If they wanted to fight legally, they could try. But Grandma was sharp and had updated her will with a lawyer present specifically because she knew they'd claim she wasn't competent. Mom got cold. She said I was going to regret this. That I had no idea what I was starting. That family has ways of making things difficult for people who turn their backs. I asked what that meant. She said Grandma listens to her children. Maybe it was time to have a real conversation with Grandma about things I'd said and done over the years that might make her reconsider. She was threatening to lie to my dying grandmother to change the will. I stood up and told her if she tried to manipulate Grandma, I'd make sure every person in our family saw the Porch video. I'd send it to Grandma's friends at assisted living. Everyone would know exactly what kind of people they were. She said I wouldn't dare. I'd look pathetic. I told her 47 people already saw it on Valerie's Instagram. 3 messaged me asking what was wrong with my family. The video speaks for itself. I left. She sat there another 20 minutes. That night, Pierce showed up at my door. Didn't knock, just talked loud enough for me to hear through the door. Said I was an ungrateful nobody who'd always been a burden. Said Mom sacrificed everything to raise me and this was how I repaid her. Said Grandma was senile and any court would see that. Said he had receipts for every repair over 15 years and he'd sue me for every penny. I recorded all of it. Then I called building security. They escorted him off the property. Sunday morning, I went to see Grandma. Needed to warn her they might try something. She was in her chair by the window, tired but smiling when she saw me. First thing she said was Joanna had already been there yesterday right after the diner. Grandma said Joanna came crying, saying I'd threatened her, that I'd been aggressive and scary. Joanna asked her to reconsider the will. I asked what Grandma said. She patted my hand. Said she told Joanna she'd made her decision years ago after watching how they treated me. No tears would change her mind. She told Joanna that a mother who lets her child be treated like a dog doesn't get to cry about fairness. Then Grandma said something else. Joanna left angry and on her way out, she stopped at the nurse's station asking about Grandma's medication schedule and who had authority to make medical decisions. Grandma looked at me and said she thought Joanna was trying to figure out how to get her declared incompetent. That's where I am now. My mother is apparently trying to get my grandmother declared mentally unfit to challenge the will. Pierce is threatening lawsuits. Valerie's been texting nonstop, calling me every name and saying, I'm tearing this family apart. I called Grandma's lawyer Monday morning. He said the best thing is for Grandma to document everything, make video statements about her intentions while clearly lucid, and potentially file something preemptively if she believes someone might claim incompetence. Grandma agreed. We're recording a video statement tomorrow, but here's what's really got me worried. My uncle Nathaniel called tonight. Pierce's brother, always neutral, never taking sides. He said Pierce came asking for money this weekend. A lot of money. Pierce said it was for legal fees, but Nathaniel said he was talking wild about how he wasn't letting some ungrateful kid take everything he worked for, how he had ways of making this go away. Nathaniel didn't give him money, but thought I should know Pierce wasn't just angry. He was planning something. I don't know what yet, but I'm not waiting around to find out. More updates coming. Update 2. So, we recorded Grandma's video statement, and things have gotten so much worse. Tuesday morning, I picked up Grandma's lawyer, Mr. Hendricks, and we went to the facility. Grandma was ready, dressed nice, sitting up straight. The video was 30 minutes. She stated her name, the date, that she was making this of her own free will while fully competent. Then she explained why she was leaving the house to me. She talked about visiting for holidays and seeing me eating alone in the kitchen while everyone was at the dining table. About Pierce telling her I was a troubled kid who needed discipline when she asked why I seemed withdrawn. About Mom making excuses when Grandma tried giving me gifts directly, saying I'd lose them, so gifts should go through her. Grandma said she later found out I never received most of them. She talked about Christmas when I was 14. She gave me $200 in a card, handed it to me personally. 2 days later, Mom called saying I'd lost it. Could she replace it? Grandma sent another $200. Years later, she found out Mom had taken the original money from me the same day, saying it went toward household expenses because Pierce was between jobs. I never knew Grandma sent a second $200. I thought I'd lost the first one. Grandma kept going, driving past the house one summer, seeing me mowing the lawn in heat while Pierce and Valerie watched TV and air conditioning through the window. Every time she brought up concerns, Mom would cry, saying she was doing her best and Grandma was being unfair. By the end, Grandma was crying. Said she should have done more, should have taken me out of that house. Said leaving me the house was the only way to make it right. Mr. Hendricks said the video would be very difficult to challenge. Grandma was clearly lucid, specific about dates, articulate about reasoning. We thought that would end the competency angle. Wrong. Thursday, I got a text from the facility's front desk. Someone called claiming to be Grandma's daughter requesting information about cognitive evaluations. The staff recognized something was off because the caller asked specific questions about documentation needed to petition for guardianship. The facility doesn't discuss resident information over phone without verification. The caller got frustrated and hung up. I drove straight there and talked to the administrator. She confirmed Joanna had visited twice that week, asking about Grandma's care plan and medication list, saying she was concerned about her mother's mental state. The administrator said Joanna was pleasant but persistent and her questions felt like she was building a case. I asked if we could do anything. The administrator said Grandma could designate a healthcare proxy and explicitly state who should not have access to her medical information. Grandma signed paperwork that afternoon, naming me as proxy and excluding Joanna and Pierce from any medical decisions. Joanna found out Friday. She showed up at my job. I work at a logistics company in a business park. Walking to my car after my shift, I saw her by the driver's door. She'd figured out where I worked from something I'd posted years ago. She started before I got close. Said I'd turned her own mother against her. Grandma was confused and I was manipulating her. The healthcare proxy was proof I was isolating Grandma from real family to control her. I told her Grandma made her own decisions. Maybe if Joanna hadn't spent 20 years treating me like garbage, Grandma wouldn't feel the need to protect her estate. Joanna said I was rewriting history. They took me in when they didn't have to. Pierce didn't have to accept another man's child. They gave me roof, food, clothes, and this is how I repay them. I asked about the $200 Grandma sent when I was 14. The money she took from me and then called Grandma for replacement. She went quiet, then said it went toward bills because Pierce lost his job. I was a child who didn't understand how expensive raising a family was. She was going to pay it back, but things kept coming up. I told her she stole from a 14-year-old and lied to her own mother. That's who she really was. And Grandma finally saw it. Her face changed. She said, "You'd regret pushing this." Pierce had been talking to a lawyer about house improvements. Over $60,000 in documented repairs and renovations over 15 years. Any judge would see they were entitled to compensation before I got a penny. I told her to have Pierce's lawyer contact Mr. Hendricks. Got in my car and left her in the parking lot. That night, I researched. In our state, someone making improvements to property they don't own can claim compensation only if improvements were made with owner's permission and they had a reasonable expectation of ownership. Pierce telling people for years, Grandma promised him the house, might work against him because it shows he knew he didn't own it. I sent everything to Mr. Hendricks. His initial read was Pierce's claim was weak, especially since Grandma could testify she never promised anything or authorized major renovations. Saturday, my uncle Nathaniel texted. Pierce and Joanna called a family meeting at their house for Sunday. All aunts, uncles, adult cousins invited. Stated purpose was discussing Grandma's care and family's future. Nathaniel thought the real purpose was turning family against me before Grandma passed. I wasn't invited, obviously, but I've spent 3 years knowing this day would come. 3 years thinking about how to handle every move they could make. This meeting was actually an opportunity. I texted my aunt, Mom's sister, who I'd always had decent relationship with. Told her I knew about the meeting and wasn't invited. I had something family needed to see before taking sides. Asked if she'd show a video to everyone. She asked what video. I told her the one Valerie posted Thanksgiving. Me locked on the porch being called a dog. She said she'd seen it. Assumed it was a joke between siblings I was in on. I told her I was locked outside 40 minutes in 38 degrees without jacket while family ate dinner. Mom told everyone I was contagious so no one would check. It wasn't a joke. She was quiet, then said she'd show it. Sunday afternoon, I waited. At 4:47 p.m., my phone exploded. Texts from cousins I hadn't talked to in years. Voicemail from Aunt saying she'd shown the video, and half the room walked out on Pierce and Joanna. Nathaniel texted saying Pierce tried explaining it as misunderstanding, but nobody bought it, especially after Aunt told them about the contagious lie. Then calls from Mom and Pierce started again. 8-9 calls Sunday night. Monday morning, Valerie texted. First time with anything other than insults. Said I'd ruined their lives. Half the family wasn't speaking to them. Grandma's sister called screaming at Mom. Said I was going to pay for this. I saved that text to, here's what they still don't understand. I'm not doing this just for revenge. For 26 years, they treated me like less than human, and nobody held them accountable. They created a story where I was the problem kid, the burden, the mistake Joanna was noble for keeping. Everyone believed it because I was too young and powerless to tell my side. I'm not powerless anymore. Grandma has good days and bad days now. Doctors say weeks, maybe months. I visit every day I can. She asked yesterday if I'd be okay when she's gone. I told her yes. She gave me what I needed to finally be free of them. She squeezed my hand and said she wished she'd been braver sooner. More updates coming. Pierce is apparently planning to show up at my workplace with his lawyer. Final update. This is my last update. Grandma passed 11 days ago and everything since has been exactly what I prepared for. Pierce did show up at my workplace with his lawyer. Wednesday afternoon, 2 guys waiting by my car. I didn't go outside. Went to my manager, explained I had a family situation with people in the lot who might cause problems. He walked me out the side entrance. Pierce's lawyer sent a letter to Mr. Hendricks demanding compensation for improvements totaling $63,000, claiming Pierce had reasonable expectation of inheriting based on verbal promises from Grandma. Mr. Hendricks responded with Grandma's video statement where she says she never promised Pierce anything. He also included documentation showing Pierce lived rent-free for 15 years, meaning any improvements were offset by approximately $180,000 in free housing at market rates. Pierce's lawyer went quiet after that. Grandma declined fast. I spent as much time as I could at the facility. Some days she knew me. Some days she thought I was my grandfather, but even confused, she'd hold my hand and say she loved me. Mom showed up at the facility twice while I was there. First time she tried entering Grandma's room, and I told the nurse Joanna wasn't on the approved visitor list. Mom argued she had every right to see her mother. The nurse confirmed Grandma had specifically requested Joanna not be allowed unsupervised visits. Mom had to sit in the common area while staff stayed in the room. She sat there an hour watching me hold Grandma's hand through the doorway. Didn't say anything. Second time she caught me in the hallway, grabbed my arm, saying we needed to talk, really talk, without lawyers. She said she was losing her mother and son at the same time. I told her she lost me 20 years ago when she chose Pierce over her child. Grandma was dying knowing her daughter let her grandson be treated like an animal. She cried, saying she knew she'd made mistakes, but was trying to keep family together. Pierce had his own childhood trauma, and she thought if she kept things calm, eventually he'd accept me. She was always caught in the middle trying to make everyone happy. I asked about Thanksgiving. The porch, locked door, contagious lie. Was that keeping things calm? She said Thanksgiving got out of hand. Pierce was stressed, drinking, Valerie egging him on. She should have unlocked the door sooner, but was dealing with 30 relatives. And by the time she remembered, it had been too long to let me back without questions. She said she was ashamed. Had been for years, but didn't know how to fix it. I told her shame wasn't an apology. She could have fixed it any time in 20 years by standing up to Pierce once, just once. She never did. She asked what she could do now to make this right. I told her nothing. Grandma made her decision. They had 6 months from date of death to vacate, not extending by a single day. She asked if I could talk to Pierce. Explained they needed more time. Housing market was bad. Nowhere to go. I told her Pierce could have saved money anytime instead of assuming he'd inherit a house he never owned. Not my problem. She walked away. Grandma passed Thursday morning. I was there. She opened her eyes about an hour before and knew who I was. Called me by name and told me to be happy. Then closed her eyes. Funeral was Tuesday. Whole family there. Pierce and Joanna sat front row like they belonged. I sat in back with Uncle Nathaniel and my aunt who'd shown the video. Nobody from Grandma's side spoke to Pierce or Joanna. At the reception, Pierce cornered me near the food table. He'd been drinking. Said I might have fooled Grandma and the family, but he knew what I really was. A leech waiting for Grandma to die to take what wasn't mine. Said he gave me roof and food for 18 years, and this was the thanks. I told him he gave me a basement and scraps and constant reminders I wasn't family. He threw my jacket in the trash Thanksgiving and locked me outside like a dog. He'd spent 15 years living free in a house he didn't own while telling everyone it was his. He got close and said this wasn't over. I might get the house, but he'd make my life miserable. Every time I walked in, I'd remember he lived there first. I smiled, told him I'd been waiting for him to say something like that because now I had witnesses to him threatening me at his mother-in-law's funeral. My Uncle Nathaniel and 3 cousins had been behind him the whole time. He turned and saw them watching. Nathaniel shook his head. Pierce's face went red and he left. Joanna followed. We went through probate unchallenged. Pierce's lawyer advised against contesting given the video and documentation. House transferred to my name 6 weeks after death. I gave them 6 months, not a day more. Week before deadline, I drove past moving truck in the driveway. Didn't stop. Final day, I showed up 9 a.m. with a locksmith. They were gone. House empty except trash and holes in walls where they'd removed fixtures. Took ceiling fans, bathroom lights, even towel racks. Didn't care. Hired contractor. 2 weeks, for $1,000. Worth it. I live in Grandma's house now. My house. Sleep in the master bedroom. Eat at the dining table where they never let me sit. Valerie texted last week. Said her parents were renting a 2-bedroom apartment. Mom cried every day. Said I destroyed their lives over something years ago. I should be over. Said she hoped I was happy. Didn't respond. But yeah, I am. Not because they're suffering, because for 26 years I carried every insult, every humiliation. I carried it because I had no choice as a kid with nowhere to go. Now I have a home. My home. They have exactly what they gave me. Nothing but memory of how they treated someone who deserved better. Grandma asked me to be happy working on it. Some days harder than others. But I sit on the back porch sometimes. Same porch they locked me on Thanksgiving. Drink my coffee. Watch the sunrise. Dogs eat outside, my mom said.